All right, today we are diving into a really powerful and, let's be honest, pretty radical investment philosophy. This isn't for those calm, sunny days in the market. Nope. This is a guide for the kind of chaos that makes most people panic and run for the hills. And it's all built around one simple but really challenging idea. What if you just never sell?
So, let's just start with a quick gut check. I want you to ask yourself this and be really honest. What is your actual plan if the market crashes by 75%? I'm not talking about a little dip, not 10 or 20%. I mean a genuine 3/4 of your portfolio is gone kind of wipeout. Do you even have a plan for that?
Just look at that number for a second. That's not just a percentage on a screen. That is that stomach in your throat feeling. It represents a loss so catastrophic that most of us can't even really wrap our heads around it, let alone prepare. But here's the thing. The whole idea we're talking about today says that preparing for exactly this is the key to everything.
Now, this is a fascinating mental exercise. It's not enough to just think about a 50% drop. You have to really picture it, feel it. And then, once you've done that, picture it happening all over again. A 50% loss and then another 50% cut from what's left. That's how you get to that brutal 75% drop. So, could you stay cool through all that? If the answer is no, then you're not ready. And that brings us to the core problem, right? When fear kicks in, most investors feel like they have to do something, to make some kind of smart move. They react. But this whole philosophy argues that reacting, or what the source material calls operating, is literally the biggest mistake you can possibly make. You can see the big difference right here. On one side, you've got the stuff we're always told to do. Be active, chase those hot stocks, sell to cut your losses, react to every bit of news. But this doctrine says something totally different. It says all of that operation is just plain wrong. It's the exact path that leads people to buy high and sell low, which is, a recipe for disaster. And boom, here's the new rule book. You just completely reject the idea of timing the market. All that constant buying and selling, that anxiety of trying to guess the absolute peak or the absolute bottom. You just toss it all out the window. You simply stop making decisions based on the price. So, okay, if reacting is the wrong thing to do, then what's the alternative? Well, that brings us right to the heart of this whole thing, the Never Sell Doctrine. And there it is, the first half of the mantra. Just let that sink in for a minute. Selling at any time is wrong. The source material basically asks a really simple question. If you look back at the entire history of the stock market, can you find a single day that was, in the long run, actually a good day to sell your stocks? And of course, here's the other side of that same coin. If selling is always the wrong move, well then buying is always the right one. It just completely removes all the guesswork and the stress of trying to time your entry. Got some extra cash? Great. Any day is a good day to buy in and become an owner. The logic here is so simple, but it's really powerful. The past is, well, it's forever. Looking back, we'd all wish we had bought more and sold, well, nothing. This doctrine is all about taking that perfect 20/20 hindsight and turning it into your strategy for the future. Okay, this is the big one, right? This is the practical question. I mean, it's a nice idea in theory, but we all live in the real world. If your portfolio is down 75% and you desperately need cash, what are you supposed to do? How do you actually get by without selling off your assets at the worst possible time? And the answer has nothing to do with the market. It's all about your personal life. The focus completely shifts away from watching stock tickers and onto building your own personal financial fortress. Because, as the saying goes, worrying is useless, but being prepared is useful. So, your survival plan? It really just comes down to these two things. Forget about PE ratios or market analysis for a second. The only things that truly matter are your cash flow and how you manage your own personal risk. These are the things that will let you hold on when the storm hits. And let's be super clear about what we mean by cash flow. This isn't some fancy financial term. It boils down to the most basic questions in life. Can you put food on the table tomorrow? Can you pay your rent or your mortgage? Can you cover your family's most important needs? Because if the answer to any of those is no, you really shouldn't be talking about investing at all. So what's the actual plan? First, you have to be brutally honest with yourself about that 75% drop we talked about. If you know in your gut you can't handle that, then you have to reduce your position now, before the crisis hits, not during. Then you build up your defenses. You secure another source of income. You have a real, concrete plan for where you'll cut your expenses. This is the real work.
I love this quote from the source because it's so real, so tangible. It's not about some complex financial product. It's about having a real-world answer to the question, what if? If things get really bad, what will you do to make money? I'll drive an Uber. Just having that answer, whatever it is for you, is what gives you the power to not panic and sell.
And all of this leads to the final and maybe most important shift in your mindset. To really live by this never sell idea, you have to completely change how you see yourself. You're not a stock trader. You're not even a portfolio manager. You are an owner. You're a capitalist.
So what does an owner do? They own. That's it. Your job is not to stress out about the day-to-day stock prices. It's not your job to figure out if Apple is selling enough iPhones or if Ford is hitting its quarterly targets. That stress, it's not yours to carry.
And why isn't it your job to worry? Because you've already delegated that job to some of the best people in the world. The companies you own, they have CEOs and management teams working around the clock. They're the ones who worry about performance so that you don't have to. Your only role is to be a quiet, long-term, passive owner of all the value that they create.
And that brings us full circle. So every single time you get that itch to check the market, to make a little trade, to react to some scary headline, just remember this mantra. Trying to outsmart the market, that's operation. And according to this philosophy, operation is the one thing that will lead you to fail. So I'll leave you with this one last thought to chew on. If you really adopt this mindset, if you truly commit to never selling, then all of a sudden market crashes aren't your biggest risk anymore. They're actually opportunities. Your only real risk, the one thing that can force you to break the rule and sell at the absolute worst time, is your own personal cash flow. You manage that, and you've basically managed everything that matters.